Joining me today, a special guest from Not That Andrew Show, the one and only Andrew Giuliani, who also has a podcast. Can't wait to catch up with him. Also, Scott McJunkin, who also has a show on American One, joining us today. Stay tuned. As a conservative activist working on campaigns throughout the entire country, I know how important it is to find a reliable print shop. From banners to yard signs to palm cards, well, Speed Pro does just that. Tom Izzo from Speed Pro, Frisco, Texas, is my new sponsor on the Ola Hawatmeh Show on American One. They can be reached at 972-403-9955, providing all of your print needs for your campaign throughout the entire country. 972-403-9955. That's Speed Pro. On the Ola Hawatmeh Show today, I have the one and only Andrew Giuliani. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on.
Ola, thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to chatting today.
Well, you ran such a wonderful race. I'm a big fan. And one thing that you said that resonated with the people and myself was, I will always be genuine.
Yeah.
You don't find a lot of politicians that say those words.
You know, Ola, I got to tell you, and it's probably from growing up in politics, the one thing that I kind of always told myself, and this is probably from spending time behind the scenes and seeing some people who were genuine in politics, but then a lot of people who certainly weren't, who would be a different person on camera and off camera. And I just said to myself that the most important thing was just being as honest and as transparent with people as possible. I believe in everything that I say. I know that means that there's probably not going to be anybody that believes in 100% of the things that I believe in. But at the very least, whether you agree with me on an issue, you disagree with me on an issue, you can know that it's coming from my heart, that it's coming from a place of reason, and that I'm not BSing you, if you will, to use a New York terminology.
No. That's why your message resonated with so many. You are genuine. You also you don't shy away from working on the Trump campaign for 4 years. And you stay true to yourself. You have been consistent. All the headlines and watching and listening to your radio show, you're very consistent with your messaging, and you don't compromise your values, which I love.
Oh, thanks, Ola. Well, I got to tell you, working on the Trump campaign in 2016 and then working in the White House for 4 years, it was an incredible experience. I'm so proud of the work that not just President Trump did, but the administration did. There were a ton of positives. And I think now, if you compare the last 2.5 years to the 4 years of President Trump, the country's in a very, very different place. So I'm very, very proud of the work that was done in the administration. And I think, sadly, a lot of the media just does not give it the credit, doesn't give it the light that it deserves. I think the history books will treat it a lot differently. But that's why, for me, I really like to talk about my experience, talk about the policy accomplishments, because I think sometimes we need to be better messengers at talking about the differences, what we were able to accomplish in those 4 years, and why the country is in such a bad path right now, and what we can do over the next 18 months to hopefully course correct that back into a place where parents can have parental rights regarding education, where our cities can be safe again, we can get our quality of life back, where we can have an immigration system that, yes, will allow people to legally come to the country, but will not allow a porous border that will just sadly allow so much illicit and illegal drugs to pour into the country as well. So to me, these are issues that are so important to me that I talk about with my wife every day, and I think about as a father for my daughter and her future. So that's why I think that whatever I can do to help make my city, my state, my country a better place, I just want to help.
We spoke about it briefly, my involvement with Moms for America and being in charge in New York, and you as a father. It's so sad what's going on in the schools today. You ran for governor, worked on Trump's campaign. I mean, win or lose, you don't give up. You have not given up the fight. You continue to send out positive messages. Now, in regards to our schools, and especially in New York, with what's going on, what's the solution? I mean, parents, it's like we have no rights to say anything or get involved with our children.
Yeah. You know, in New York, and you're going to have a bunch of different school board races all across the state of New York coming up within the next week. I think that's really, if you think about a short-term solution, that's really where people need to get out, research their school board candidates, see who believe in parental choice, in bringing, if you will, the free market, more choice into education, see who's actually pitching for transparency in curriculums. And vote for those candidates. Go help those candidates over the coming last final days of their political stretch. That's a short-term goal, very short-term goal, if you will. And then long-term, right now, in a state like New York, I don't want to sound like the Grim Reaper here, but with a legislature that's a supermajority kind of against parental choice, parental rights in education, and the same thing in New York City, it seems like it's going to be a few years before parents really get a seat at the table outside of these school boards. That's why these local school boards are so important. It really is the next option in New York. But in terms of that, I mean, you're looking at 2026 for the next gubernatorial race, when hopefully you can elect a governor in the state of New York that's not going to be beholden to a leftist teachers union, and I did a show about this about a month ago, where I did a breakdown of their political dollars that they gave. They raised $23 million, the American Federation of Teachers, which is run by Randy Weingart, in 2022. $23 million they raised. They gave $1,050 to Republicans, and the other $23 million to Democratic causes. So when you look at bias in education, it's right there in front of you. So for me, it's a matter of also looking outside of our state and saying what states are doing it well, right? You can look at Florida right now, which just adopted universal school choice in vouchers. So that way, every parent gets an $8,000 voucher. So if they feel like their public school is not performing up to the level that they want, they can go take that voucher to a parochial school or a yeshiva school if they're Jewish, or a private school, or for homeschooling. As we know, that's very expensive, and more people have done it over the last few years. And you're seeing more and more states develop that. Now, generally, these are states with Republican legislatures. But I think if you continue to see success in these states as they grow, it's going to put a lot of pressure on the Democratic legislatures in blue states like New York, because one of the things that I saw on the campaign trail, and I see now, is that our kids go far beyond what political party we are. You know, if somebody who is a Democratic thought leader came to me with an idea that I genuinely thought would help my daughter and her future, I would absolutely have that conversation and listen to them. I haven't heard many recently from the left, but that doesn't mean that I don't want a city and a country that's going to be best for my daughter. I think that's what choice does for parents. And that's why I'm looking not just at New York, but beyond the state of New York, at other states that are doing it well, because I think that's another way that you can start to see some change. You know, it's not going to be overnight, but over the course of the next 5 years to a decade in some of these blue states like New York.
As a conservative activist working on campaigns throughout the entire country, I know how important it is to find a reliable print shop. From banners to yard signs to palm cards, well, Speed Pro does just that. Tom Izzo from Speed Pro, Frisco, Texas, is my new sponsor on the Ola Hawatmeh Show on American One. They can be reached at 972-403-9955, providing all of your print needs for your campaign throughout the entire country. 972-403-9955. That's Speed Pro. Absolutely. I would love to work with you. I work with different candidates, I told you briefly, in America, from state to state, and you find the Democrats are actually, I mean, they're concerned about their children just as much as we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so most of the candidates that I'm working with, it's like we need that on our platform to get in, because they don't want their children controlled by the government. They don't want their children. I mean, liberals don't want. I mean, that's one thing we have in common with them, and I see it growing more and more. And so I'm like, yes, we need to push on that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, I think about, it's very personal for me because my wife is from Lithuania. She, grew up in the first few years of her life in the Soviet Union. But I mean, she talks about how really in Lithuania there was a pressure from the schools, if you will, so from the state to say if your parents had pro-Lithuanian ties, anti-Soviet Union ideals in the home. And look, it's not a perfect parallel to what's going on in the United States of America right now. But when Terry McAuliffe, the former governor of Virginia, goes out and says he doesn't believe that parents should be the primary stakeholders in our kids' education, that's a real wake-up call. And sadly, that's just, there's no other way to describe this, but that's a real Marxist thought. And we absolutely need to fight back against that. And that's why, to me, it's a matter of giving parents the maximum amount of choice. And Ola, here's one of the things that's so interesting, too. On the campaign trail, I met many really good public school teachers that love their craft, that want to see public schools succeed in the United States of America. Sadly, I think, though, they're in a system led by a union that really is only protecting the bottom quarter of teachers, not the ones that actually want to see the ball advanced. And what I would love to see, if you talk kind of a more macro idea, is I'd really love to see a meritocracy in our schools, in our public schools. So that way, look, if you have a teacher that's performing really well in the public schools, they deserve a raise. But, maybe like a Jack Welch idea, the bottom 10 or 15% of teachers, they need to go find a new profession because they're not helping our kids. And that's why you see in a place like New York, you see so many schools that have a 15%, 20% grade reading level where literally 1 in 5, 1 in 6, 1 in 7 kids can read up to their grade level in the public schools, which sadly is just, it's depressing when you think about it. That's why parental choice to me is, it's actually the issue. It's funny, I was thinking about this the other day, but of all the issues that I've been covering on my podcast, Not That Andrew, and on my radio show, which you can get on WABCradio.com or on Sundays from 3 to 4 p.m. But the issue we've talked about more than crime, more than the economy, more than local issues like congestion pricing, which is really big in New York City right now, it's education. Because my wife and I talk about it more than anything. I feel like I talk to more parents from all across the political spectrum that are worried and concerned about it right now. And it's an issue that when I look at my life, and who knows how long we have on this earth? Might be another day. Let's hope it's 50 plus years or something like that. But over the next 50 years, we need to figure out a way as conservatives to take back the media and take back education, which we've been outflanked on by the left completely. Doesn't mean that we need a predominantly conservative media or conservative education system the way the left has. We just need a balance. We just need unbiased education, if you will, for our kids, instead of kind of these radical ideas which have been pushed on our kids now for far too long.
I completely agree with you. I mean, our children are the future of America, and we see our school taxes continue to rise while our children are being brainwashed, and that's not right. And the Biden administration, I mean, bottom line is we need to replace the Biden administration. They need out because they are doing nothing but destroying America and destroying our children. Scott, would you like to add anything?
Oh, I was going to add to just the comment about how the grade levels, that kids are not reading towards the correct grade levels. And the COVID lockdowns, which were largely supported by the liberal teachers union in blue states, but it happened everywhere. I'm in Virginia right now.
Right.
Happened here too. And I remember reading a report on how kids are now reading or all the progress that we've made since 1993 up until about a few years ago has been erased.
Yeah.
So almost an entire generation of progress that we've made in education is gone due to the liberal policies. And what I think is interesting is and we also hear about the education thing more and more. That's kind of like one of my pet topics as well, because it impacts me personally for my daughter, but also seeing and just thinking about how we have lost the education race, I guess, globally, or we're losing to other countries such as China. And seeing how this has become a main issue in Republican circles, what do you think? Should Republicans continue to really double down on the education issue, or are there other issues that you think are winning topics to bring up, especially as we get closer to the general election?
Yeah, I think there are some other winning topics as well. I think, I think border security actually is one that's starting to cut across. If you look, you go 6, 7, 8 years ago, and when Trump started to talk about it, it was kind of more of a rile up the base issue. But I think when you look at kind of what the last 2.5 years have brought, sadly, and one of the issues that I worked on in the White House was working on the opioid task force, which was run out of the White House by Kellyanne. And one of the real, I think, things that the president was really proud of, which didn't get a lot of press, was for the first time in over 30 years, in 2019, we actually saw a reduction in opioid deaths in the United States of America. So it had gone up every single year for 30 years. The president, in the second half of his first year, put together a task force, and finally, through interdiction, through public messaging and awareness, we actually saw a 17% decrease. Now, because of the pandemic and because of the border, you've seen now this new records being set in terms of opioid and fentanyl deaths. So that's why I think, border security is another issue that is starting to become a little more bipartisan. But when I look at an issue that really is, I think, the bipartisan issue of our time, and it cuts across all different cultures. We're seeing it in New York City from not just from the Asian American community as well, where Republicans, for the first time in the 2021 mayoral race, actually won the Asian American community in New York, and it was because of education. So I think you're absolutely right. Education, to me, is the primary issue that just cuts across all different ones. There are some other ones, but I think it's education. And Scott, Ola, when they say that politics is local, which is a cliche, but it really is true. It's a lot of cliches are true, but there's nothing more local than your daughter, my daughter, our kids, right? That's as local as it gets. And when you see, sadly, what some of the curriculums have been teaching, and Virginia, you can call it kind of ground zero of this, and I would call it this potential turning point, pointing out the McAuliffe-Youngkin debate as being this aha moment, where I think actually McAuliffe, the funny thing was, he was actually being honest with people, where he really believes that. It's probably one of the most honest things that he said. That's how scary it actually is. He wasn't masking the truth in his beliefs right there. Obviously, it's radically wrong and very scary. But to me, education is the top issue in terms of cutting across party lines in my mind.
I completely agree with you. And I feel like the left has gotten a hold of our children for so long, but now it's gotten to a point where there are no more boundaries, where we have had enough, because this has been going on for so long. Yeah. And then as we've seen after BLM and just slowly, now you're telling us that my son or daughter is not a boy or a girl. They could be a cat and a dog, or they could be something else. It's disgusting, disturbing. Andrew, again, thank you so much for coming on. Where can we listen to your radio and podcast?
Absolutely. Well, you can follow me at Andrew H. Giuliani on Twitter, Facebook, all the stuff there. And that'll show kind of when the next podcast is coming up. Or you can go to WABCradio.com. Like I said, I'm live on Sundays from 3 to 4 o'clock. And then podcasts drop every week. And right now we're going through, we actually just had a school board candidate on who's going to be running in Long Island. We're going to have city council candidates coming on because, look, as I said to start this off, Ola, and you know what it's like to run in New York. It's so important to make sure we have as much transparency as possible, whether it's in education, whether it's in the political system. I want people that are informed, that can make the best decision as possible. We need to make sure that we're paying attention, that we're looking at the places where we can see the changes that we need to make in the state of New York, in the city of New York. And that's why I'm thankful that you have a platform as well, that you're able to get on out there and I think say the right messaging as well.
Thank you so much. God bless. Also, thank you, Speed Pro, to be our sponsor today on our show. Thank you, Andrew.
Ola, Scott, thank you very much. Great to be with you.